delicate kind of discourse to enter into, and not only because, as for example, George Steiner, who is one of the greatest of critics, has said, we live in an age of epilogue, which means after the word, the generation after the word. And he was actually he was talking in terms of the raging deconstruction period at that time. But we have moved far away even from there. We are now living in a world where I think there's a huge disconnection between logos on one side and cosmos on the other side. So we are actually talking about a very large disconnection. So in this interrupted, or shall we say the poet-interrupted discourse, to really talk about poetry and its relevance, I think it is actually suicidal. Because you may think that, because the social media is there, it has become democratized. My own feeling is that it is a huge threat because of, instead of living your word, what you're actually doing is to imitate the word and write it there, which means we are talking about apes. Now, writing a poem is doubly loaded if you are doing a political poem, because political poems, whether it is a poem relating to one's body, the feminist poetry, or Dalit poetry, or anything at all, what's going on in Delhi perhaps. So the idea of a political poem is fraught. Why is it fraught? It is fraught because it constantly runs the risk of being a pamphlet. How do you move away from pamphleteering and into a proper poem which is also political is a question which someone like Neruda has answered very well. But I don't think to a very great extent we have been able to tackle it in India. So this is a political poem. This poem actually relates to Muhammad Akhlaq, who died last year, who was killed last year because of accusations of his dealing with beef. So this poem is the opening poem of my forthcoming collection of poems called Available Light. And why do I call it Available Light? As we grow older, the supply to your for your life, the light supply, is finite. It becomes shorter and shorter. Mine is almost sort of dimming. This is called Dadri. Muhammad, on the nape of your neck, the night cool like a knife's breath. From Delhi's ruins, September steps out in stealth like an assassin, tracks you down through the moving maze of every clock to the precise hour of your death. Winter is here, faint as a shadow of ivy on stone, as is summer between 11 and 4. Before it is gone, all of it, to a far shore. Stick out a finger to the wind, cattle and gods, kettle and drums. The caravan takes count and finds the day dark, loud, shorter by a head. So that's a poem which is, I thought I had succeeded not too much because the subject is political. To go back into the idea of the written word, in the last 100 years, I would think, and I'm talking about the Western history as well as, to some extent, the English-speaking Republic of Indian history, right? So, in the last 100 years, what has been the real difference in terms of your outlook? And I can say it in one word, it's actually moving from a spiritual to a very, very material world. Which is the reason why Steiner again talks about the cult of Beckham, who was a football player, as over and above the cult of Shakespeare. Now, I've been just reading, on the flight yesterday, I was reading Svetlana Alexievich's book called Second Hand Time. She won the Nobel, as you know, this year. It's a great book. It's a great book because it encompasses about 200 voices without names, and it is just their memories about Soviet Union, Stalin, communism, the disintegration of it, the sellout of it, the generation which doesn't care for that. You know, this whole armies. Russia is a very suffering, tragic country because the whole communities, armies are continually in search of tragedies. You know, from one tragedy, they lurch into another one and into another one. Cold, freezing hell, you know, maybe warmed up by some shed blood. So I think that, you know, which means the idea of the word is again taken a beating. And I'm trying to say something along those lines in my next poem. Please do not look for a very integrated connection there. It is not meant to have been written for this discourse. This poem is again from Available Light. It's called Hadal. Hadal, as you know, has got two meanings. One is Hades, the Greek underworld of the dead. And then there is a particular very deep marine region, which is about 23,000 feet deep, where the opacity and density is so heavy and high that only predators can survive. So this is called Hadal in both, I suppose, sense of the term. The waves white with what they witnessed below return bowing and scraping along the shadows they throw on shore. Back to the silence thick as masked glass. Back to first fish, time cutting teeth in the dark. Ossified bones, hermaphrodite flesh, marine snow. The cold is without thought. Things alive barely breathe. Your body sieves the sun to the last. Here you are in your element, feeding the sea out of your hand. The memory-pumping heart is salt. The sands rise from your pores. There the shadows start. Now, there is I tend to work in terms of sequences, because I'm constantly afraid of time running out on me. I'm a very cowardly guy, really, to tell the truth. I'm a chronophobe because I think time is running past and I have not done enough, which is a stupid way of looking at time. It just shows your insecurity, really. This one is my visiting Bombay back after a very long interval. And it looked like such a different city to me. I had been there, like a drunken rake for close to 15 years, then I left the city. This is called retro. You walk into neon walls of the night, wearing the same goggles that dimmed your day. You meet women talking of their prime, rolling glasses on foreheads, as if to smooth the wrinkles of time. The streets are blind, the beggars mellow, outside cafes of a kind. The band plays songs black and white. The last kiss bleeds the place like dawn. They still find you a cab with a meter running, a vein cut in your face. It's almost the same city, just that everybody is a little slow and fat. The morning rain is thin as your hair, as gray. First light sings no praise. The next poem is called Shakti Mills. When I was editing a newspaper called DNA, I could actually see from my 11th floor window the chimneys of Shakti Mills. It's an old dilapidated place, and almost all the new skyscrapers of Bombay come in that area, which was once the textile heaven. Now in Shakti Mills, while I was editing this paper, this was 2.5, 3 years ago, a very brave girl was raped, and it was a terrible thing to have happened. And my challenge, I didn't think I was going to write a poem on that because I'm generally considered to be anti-feminist. But then the thing is, you keep thinking about these things, and then you realize that there's a way of thinking it above categories, above your genders, above all these things. It's just a human thing. So this poem is about that. I must tell you that all these poems are for me challenges of actually intimating with yourself to a great extent. Shakti Mills. The sun darkens the stone. The moon is crazed, broken polygon, the shadow of a song. A fissure in the earth reveals a cave emptied of reptilian death. Here you bent on your knees, hoping for a godsend. The night spreads its hood. The sky brims with eyes. Here you were taken, laid low, crushing grass, grounding glass. The wind gathered your rags, hung them on trees, fled. Here you were born again and again. The air kissed your face, bled. I think I'll skip a couple of poems now and go into a rather light one. Because I was shuttling between cities for a while, I was living out of a suitcase for quite some time. So this is about that. It's called Couple. At last she puts in a shy appearance at the far end of the belt, having made sure the young, good-looking ones have all left. An old, shapeless thing, last to leave a plane, waiting in places from where people hurry to go. The pocket flaps are worn to a thread, the zippers halfway undone. The slider slips helplessly over the teeth. The mouth gapes like a sack undone. Almost everything is more than she can contain. The wheels drag. I watch my bag go past me thrice before I take grip of her by the belly, and we resume life, man and wife. You're supposed to smile and laugh. That's supposed to be a funny poem. What the hell is wrong with you guys? Really? So since you really want to be grim and silent, I am going to read you a very grim and silent poem so that it kind of helps both of us. While I was in Bombay some time ago, I hate Bombay. I hate Bombay because it is impossible, it is just impossible, really. But my poetry comes from Bombay. My prose comes from the winter in Delhi. So this is a particular dream I had. One morning, early morning, I woke up with a line in my, not a line, a name in my ears. It's called David. And again, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, I again actually had a dream on David. David, as you know, is a Jewish name. And I am fairly fascinated by everything which is extreme, which actually means that my century is the 1940s. I am a millennial, away from you guys, because I keep watching, Siberia. I keep watching the wars. I keep watching Stalin all the time. I'm a necrophiliac kind of character. Anyway. So then I had to, this guy kept coming in my dream. So finally I had to write 39 poems on this guy. And he left after that. So this poem is from that sequence. Yeah. And you will have to recall that, when you're talking about a Jewish experience, the concentration camp experience. Once upon a time, moon forged in the remote fog of future. The sea splutters, bodies lower like lanterns. The flags are forgotten. Those barks too, more than a language. A manner of laughing almost. In silence we plumb our own depths, down to starlit bottom, surprised as night birds by light. This is the next one is the 10th poem from from David, Don't Be Sad, That Was a Dream. This poem is also from that, but this one is actually based in Colaba. If you're familiar with Colaba, there's a place called Café Montego, which is very cosmopolitan, and where people keep going for having a good time. So this is part of the David sequence. Before I read this poem, it's a short poem. Before I read this poem, I must tell you that in the concentration camps in Germany, what happened was that a bunch of Jews would be digging the earth for burying another bunch of Jews whom they probably know, right? And another bunch of Jews would be playing music. Mama Sontano Felice, Mama, your son is very happy. On the violin, on the piano. It was the other side of hell. Jukebox in Colaba. Hammer this day into your heart. Step out into the unearthly place, milling with unjustified absences. Spinning children, wound the skin around the sun. Make pain anew like Christ. They press their lips, a scar stamped on the glass of stranded cars. The junkies sleepwalk the collapsed bridges in pools of piss. The gens in their suits empty like tins in the gentle rain. The cattle with their painted horns accuse you from the back of a truck. Near Café Montero, they let the tailboat down and you wondered if the sky was drunk. Listen as if drawn to our eyes. They are playing Mama son tanto felice. Time to dance on the ashes. Your steps are slow. Your eyes are soothed. You grind your friends underfoot. Thank you.